For anyone who is not familiar, the NAC is the National Advisory Council, and many members are here. And I will turn it over to Melanie, one of the co-chairs of the National Advisory Council this year.
Thank you so much, Tom, for that intro. If you could grant me the screen sharing superpower, I would appreciate it, because we've got a slide deck. Thank you. All right. Okay. So welcome everyone to Brigade Congress, and welcome everyone to the session. I'm happy you're here. Welcome to day 2. Slide. All right, so this session is to talk about the National Advisory Council. I would like to introduce also, I'm Melanie Masnak. I'm a co-chair of the National Advisory Council this year. My pronouns are she, her. I'd like to introduce Ben Trevino. Ben, if you want to unmute and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Trevino. I serve along with Melanie and along with my colleagues on NAC and serve as the co-chair. My pronouns are his.
We also have joining us today a couple of current NAC members, Thad, Janet, and M. And then we do have a couple former NAC members, Chris and Noel. So thank you all so much for joining us today. What we're going to be talking about today, we're going to go through a little bit of the history of the National Advisory Council, how it all got started, and I think hopefully the storytelling will kind of help clarify kind of where we're coming from and where we're going. We're going to talk a little bit about the present NAC, and then kind of what we've been up to this year. And then we're going to talk about what's next for the Brigade Network and invite you to run for NAC. The elections are coming up this spring. And generally invite you to share feedback and otherwise participate in governing the Brigade Network and representing the Brigade Network's interests within conversations at Code for America with us. So with that, I'd love to hand it over now to Janet to talk a little bit about the history of the National Advisory Council. And I'm going to try to fix in the meantime the display. I don't know why it's off center. So Janet.
Okay, thanks, Melanie. This is a very bird's eye view of how we came into being. In the beginning of Code for America, there was only fellowships. It was based upon a Teach for America model. And it was a 2010, and that was a really new and novel idea. And so they put out a call for people for fellowships. And a lot of people showed up. This is that Linux. You just need to go back about 3. Yeah, so a lot of people showed up and wanted to do this kind of work, far more than they could accommodate with this small fellowship program. So an all-volunteer experimental division of Code for America was created, and that was the Brigade Network. Some seed money was put out there, a framework, and that was just kind of, let's see what happens. Next slide. And within Code for America, there was a team that was dedicated to supporting this volunteer network. That was the network team. And the brigades then grew and grew to the point where it became pretty unwieldy to coordinate, collaborate, and manage what was going on in the network. And at that point, about 2016, the National Advisory Council was created. And we have some people here who were part of that. Noel, Chris?
Great. Chris, you want to go?
Yeah, it's really hard for an organization like Code for America, sitting atop this network of hundreds of brigades to really see what's going on the ground and have that experience by their side when they're making decisions. And during a particularly tough time in the network, that really flared up, and the NAC was put together as a way to bridge that gap. And one of the things that really hit me hard early, I ran for the NAC, I got elected, and it was the first summit after the NAC became a thing. And we were invited to have dinner, the whole new NAC at Jen, the founder's house. And we were so excited to tell all the brigades, you know, we're finally into the layer of the beast where we can finally make change and have impact. And sometime that night, I saw a joke on social media. Someone was mentioning, oh, the NAC and the CFA are getting together to decide what we're all going to do. And what I realized is, like, representing the brigade network isn't about just getting elected and showing up. It's a lot of work to do. And CFA listening to the network isn't just a decision. It's not enough just for them to say listening's important. It's hard to listen to this many people who are all already overextended and exhausted. So that's really the opportunity, is to show up and support the network by pushing things forward.
Yeah, speaking about being overextended, I didn't realize what I was getting involved in with the NAC, to be perfectly frank. That first year, I found myself frustrated on two ends. My primary frustration was around the fact that there were a lot of things that were going on at Code for America that were impacting negatively the brigade program. The leadership at CFA was churning through. The leadership at the CFA brigade side of things had become unstable. And then personally here in New York City, I was working to kind of like restand up what moving, essentially transitioning from Hack Nights to being a nonprofit organization. The first class of the NAC, I think, really was to rebuild a relationship. We were in a situation where there was a lot of mistrust, there was a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of resources had been cut. There was even a proposal that we had been given, the brigades had been given essentially to become sales agents of Code for America for a project that would be a content management system that Code for America was building. And so that first year was to really rebuild a sense of trust, and then to build a framework, some type of scaffolding that would allow us to move forward, so that way the community, which is the brigade, would have a point into CFA that wasn't a staff member that was telling us what we needed to do. And you know, at the time that the NAC was put together, I think we were 5 years into the Code for America framework of the brigades. And so there was a level of solidarity, a level of network, a level of esprit de corps that was completely outside of the headquarters that was San Francisco. And so for me, the NAC has been a framework to help articulate and manage the brigade's relationship with Code for America, though at times I've also seen the NAC as Code for America's way to manage the brigades. And I think that there still continues to be quite a bit of conflict for the fact that we still don't know exactly what that National Agenda Council looks like, what it's supposed to be doing, and how can Code for America truly incorporate the ideals, passions, and resources that they love to talk about in all of their marketing materials. So I will hand this back over, unless Chris has anything else to say, hand this back to our sitting NAC members to talk about the evolution of the NAC.
Thanks, Noel. I've got nothing to add.
Next slide, Melanie. Yeah, thank you, Chris and Noel, for those insights on that. Yeah, to reiterate, the whole Code for America organization is an experiment, and we are an experiment within an experiment in terms of knowing what to do or figuring out what to do. And I think it was in the second cohort that there was an election for the first cohort, and then the second cohort changed it to try to get better representation from throughout the network, to have elections take place every year. And in alternating years, you get people from at large and from certain regions of the country to try to balance representation, so that we don't just end up with all brigade, all NAC members who are from big coastal brigades. Next slide. It's been difficult for the NAC to become a team because we meet once a month online, that's been the structure, and that we get together in person twice a year. So getting to know people and work together as a team under those circumstances have been very difficult. And in fact, this being all remote for everything has been sort of a boon to us to become more of a team. I was going to show you a picture of the current class, but the current group of NAC, we have never met together in person. Next slide. I am now, Ben, this is where we decided we were going to hand off to you. Ben just woke up.
Yeah, I'd love to invite current members of the NAC to go ahead and unmute and introduce yourselves. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so we can meet the current NAC members who are on this call.
So I can introduce myself, also just having woken up. My name is Ben Trevino. I introduced myself at the top of the session, but I also want to share that I'm from the Brigade Code for Hawaii, which I've been involved in for several years, and I'm finishing my second year of my NAC term. And what else is relevant? Oh, I was a 2018 community fellow too. And I'll hand off to Thad, who I see is on this call.
Hello, I'm Thad, and I'm based in Code for Boston. I've been involved in Code for Boston for many, many years, and happy to have been elected by the Northeast as a regional representative this past election. And so I'll serve for one more year, and we'll also be helping to facilitate the elections coming up this round starting in a few weeks, actually. So stay tuned if you might want to run, and I'll be talking more about that later in the session. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, I'm Em, they, them. I'm in Portland, Maine, and I've been on the NAC since 2018. Rotating off, it's been a good ride, and I definitely am interested in this conversation and thinking about how we can move forward. Are we also doing favorite food? I'll have to think about that, put it in the chat.
All right, and then we have Janet. I don't know if you'd like to introduce yourself a little more.
Hi, I'm Janet Michaelis. I'm from Code for Dayton, and I'm in my second term on NAC, so I have one more year as I was elected from the central, formerly Midwest region.
And as I mentioned, I'm Melanie Maznek. I'm currently in Philadelphia. I moved here just before the pandemic, so I haven't gotten to get super involved with Code for Philly, unfortunately. I previously was in Code for Asheville, and before that, Open Cleveland. And I am a co-chair now, and I'll be rolling off the NAC this coming spring. So with that, I am looking at the chat, and I would like to invite Ben both to continue this and to share your screen instead, as maybe it will be a little bit more cooperative than mine. Thank you.
All right, 1 second while I get that lined up. Thanks for your patience here. Okay, so we should also mention the NAC members that are serving currently on the NAC but are not currently here. Nina Kin from Hack for LA, Sabra and Raven from Code for Asheville, Tyreek Shepard from Code for Atlanta, and Bonnie Wolf, also from Hack for LA. We together comprise the NAC, as we've currently talked about. And you've probably met and seen several of those people that, even though they're not here, because they've been working on many panels relating to the Congress. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time just sharing what the NAC looks like, what our work has looked like this year, both in terms of its what it fundamentally is, and what it's looked like because of COVID, in response to COVID. I really want to express some appreciation for the former NAC members who came to share about the history of the NAC, because it is, everything they said is so true. You know, really working with a perception of what it is that we do, dealing with the reality of you know, listening to a really distributed and diverse set of voices, and then implementing what we hear in the context of an organization. What I have learned about the NAC, and I think this is a sentiment that is shared with my colleagues, is that in some ways when we talk about the NAC, we're really talking about the NAC and the network team together, because the point of influence is really the interface between, it's that interface that's relevant. The NAC by itself cannot act, the network team by itself cannot act, and it's only in our collaboration and our conversation that we're able to figure out what is possible, what is desirable, and then what it is that we can communicate back and forth between the network. So that interface idea, I think, is really important to share and contextualize. And I know we have some members of the network team here on this call too, and I'm hoping that when we have time for Q&A, we'll get to have a conversation with them as well. From previous documents, and I think this is pulled from our steering document for 2020, we have laid out what we understand to be the purpose of the NAC. That purpose falls into several different categories. One is advising the headquarters for Code for America. The other is to sort of support the work of brigades by providing tools and resources for brigades to conduct the community building, project development, and other activities that brigades do. And really, I think one of the tasks and roles that most resonates with us as NAC members is building leadership throughout the network. And you know, while I think as NAC members, we are naturally and positionally in leadership roles, I think as a movement, and really to follow in the spirit of what the NAC, the original NAC members set up, I think the vision is really to have leadership come from the entire network and really be a leaderful movement. So part of our intent in sharing this presentation is to encourage you to run for NAC, as Melanie said, but also to highlight the different ways that even if you're not on NAC, leadership is possible, and to support those things and have a conversation about them. I will invite my colleagues to comment on this slide, which I haven't seen yet.
Yes, Ben, that was from my launching a new brigade slide deck. But basically, this was to let individuals see why would you want to be a part of this organization as opposed to other civic tech organizations. It has to do with the potential within Code for America's network, capital N network, to work with government partners and to do some of these things at real scale. So, surprise.
Thanks, Janet. Okay, so bringing it into the present, what have we been up to this year? And another thing that we wanted to accomplish with this was be accountable to our roles as representatives. I think be accountable to our role in the lineage of NAC members, and really, again, really glad to have former NAC members here to reflect on what we've been doing and comment on whether it's the direction that was envisioned with NAC when NAC was started. We've mentioned COVID a couple of times already, and how it has prevented us from meeting in person. It has, like for everyone in the world, certainly in the United States, in our response, has sapped our capacity as personal situations have changed, as we've experienced loss, and really put pressure on the brigades, simply because a lot of them had to really start to operate differently, fundamentally differently than they had been before. And so, and our own working practices were disrupted, as Janet mentioned. Normally we would have gotten together at one or both of the in-person Code for America conferences and had an onboarding. So we have had to adapt. We have had to adapt to a different environment, and we've had to adapt to a different environment for those people that, for the community. As Noel was saying, really our community is the Brigade Network and Brigade volunteers. Some of the adaptations that we've made, both in trying to move the NAC forward generally, and then also accommodate some of these shifts in context, were we introduced a document that we hope will be useful to future NAC classes, that lays out some elements of a charter and purpose, but really also clarifies what are the objectives for that given class and that given year. So we created a template of a steering document and articulated some deliverables that we wanted to hold ourselves accountable to, and we'll be reporting back about those. Learning from previous years and the role of the chair. The chair role has a lot of responsibilities and has previously been a pretty big lift for the individual in the chair role. So as another experiment, we decided to try a co-chair situation in which Melanie and I have been able to share responsibilities and support each other, which in my opinion has really worked out. And I think that we've been able to write out, different parts of the year when we've been more or less available. And that's been especially important in 2020 because of COVID, but I think is generally a really, it's nice to have that kind of support. We also introduced a simple decision-making spreadsheet to track two things. One is to have an official record of decisions that we made that can be open, again, that can be transparent and people can view accountable, and then also can be clear, which things what is the type of thing that as NAC we want to make a decision on, and keep a record of those things so that it can inform us later in the year, but also inform other people who are interested in our work. And Melanie, Janet, does anyone want to jump in on anything or anything I missed?
No, I think only that, we're trying to get a little more structure in place to, I think make it easier to track kind of what's going on and easier to sort of make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to deliver on what we are hearing from brigade leaders, brigade members that they want.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Melanie. All right, so the next few slides are all about our deliverables that we articulated in the steering document. So you can see these. I believe the steering document is available for public access, and I've got some links at the end. But this was one of the major objectives we set up, and I think this has historically been a big responsibility and contribution of the NAC, is supporting Brigade Congress and Brigade Congress programming. So M in particular has really taken the lead on this, and also along with Will and the other parts of the network team, built up leaders from within the network to do this. And M, can I invite you to comment on your experience with Brigade Congress programming?
Yeah, I think as it relates to the NAC, the most helpful thing here is, frankly, we were kind of behind in some of the planning, and being able to tag in NAC members to help with outreach to panelists, to be informed about what's going on, logistics, to help answer questions, spread the word. That's been super helpful. And, I think it's interesting to also see a institutional memory type of thing start to emerge with some of these committees, because I guess from my point of view, I'm seeing how we create a National Day committee, and we create a Brigade Congress committee, and we have the NAC. And having, myself being around or part or members of the NAC be part of all of those committees has helped kind of lend some structure to it. And I'd love to see those, not be something we need to reinvent the wheel for every time. So there's definitely thinking about how committees are run and how we can keep that knowledge moving forward instead of just sort of breaking down in between the several months in between committees.
And we are all here right now because of these efforts. And so thanks to Em and everyone on the Brigade Congress Program Committee, because this was a big adjustment. And as Em was saying, we're kind of behind just given all the things that were going on this year. So really, and I have really, as I do every year, really appreciate this opportunity to get together. So that was one objective. I would rate that. I'd rate that an A. That's my personal opinion now. It's not official. There's no official audit. But another objective we had was to continue in the work that we have been doing in previous years to coordinate the work of brigades on National Day of Civic Hacking. And this was really taken, the lead for this was really taken by the network staff. I sat on the committee for National Day of Civic Hacking, but between the volunteers from throughout the network, I see Diana's on this call, and I don't know if anyone else from our committee was on the call, but the staff, I thought National Day for my brigade was a huge success. The staff coming in and then coordinating within the larger Code for America organization with partners was really successful. And I think the way that the committee was organized empowered and created a lot of opportunities for volunteers to make bigger contributions to the network at large. And so this was a huge, I thought this was a big success, and largely because of the volunteers coming in. As a NAC representative on the committee, I did not do very much, and yet this really, I think, was a successful effort. On Brigade Infrastructure, I might invite Melanie here, who has been really in the middle of all the efforts relating to this.
Yeah, I think this one kind of came up, again, as everything has moved online, and suddenly we're, this year, obviously, because of the pandemic. And then also we suddenly found ourselves in kind of a new position where a lot of new Code for America volunteers were coming in just straight to the national Slack without joining a brigade first. And so this has really kind of been existing outside of the model we've had, right? And so we've been sort of adjusting and trying to understand how do we build and maintain and become an online community and a community where we can collaborate across time zones, where we can invite in participation from people who maybe don't live in a city with a brigade. How do we make this something where anyone can kind of show up and invite themselves in and be welcomed. And so I think, what we've ended up doing is some of the little tasks, honestly, there was a little bit of Slack channel reorganization. I know M did some work to get a Slack channel, or a Slack bot, set up in the Code for America Slack that greets people who are new when they come in. We had some old NAC docs that due to some reorganization were, somewhere in some folder. Anyway, so a lot of the sort of little ticky-tacky tasks of maintaining institutional memory and trying to pay attention to what is the experience of new members in our community as they join. And then we also, of course, I don't know if this belongs on here, but we have also started setting up a monthly kind of project night where people can present their projects and kind of showcase them, and also pitch projects and invite in new volunteers. And then M also, again, this may be on another slide, but M also has worked on the new brigade newsletter, Sparks, which you may have been seeing in your inbox. Again, with another effort to try to make our network really able to communicate better and more resilient to this change that we've had this year.
Thanks, Melanie. That's very well said. And this, the bullet points on this slide really don't do justice to the tremendous effort that's gone into all these things. There's been there's really a lot of work that's gone into Brigade Infrastructure, and I think and there was a lot of work that we were building on for Brigade Infrastructure, everything from the discourse being set up to all of the GitHub repo norms and things that have been in place. So this is ongoing work, and I think it's really important in the network, and really glad that we had Melanie to spearhead that effort. Updating the Brigade Organizer Playbook. This was something that was high on the NAC priority list. Bonnie and Thad have been doing really tremendous work on this. Thad, do you want to talk about the BOP at all?
We did a lightning talk on this yesterday, and the recording will be available on it if you're interested. But the main idea is, if you are a brigade leader, fill out the interest form that I'll put in the chat. And starting Monday, you can get a one-on-one conversation with a user researcher so you can record some of the things that you maybe could share or would want to share for the way you carry out your brigade. So welcome for that.
Thank you, Thad. Another goal we had was infrastructure to elevate wins and concerns, and Melanie mentioned a couple of the things like the monthly brigade meetups and stand-ups that have been happening, especially around COVID projects, Sparks. Janet, do you want to mention anything about craft or anything on this slide?
No, thank you. Not right now.
Okay. I would also call out that due to the joint efforts of the NAC, we were able to have one purely social gathering, community fun times, and that was another effort to try to just create some community and create space for people to share what they're working on. We really wanted to, we've mentioned accountability several times, and we really wanted to be accountable in different ways, including to the goals we set and what we learned from them, and make sure that we're in a process of learning. Tyreek took the lead on this deliverable, and we had a very insightful retro in the summer that I think has really informed what we've done since then, and how we continue to conduct those things. Tyreek shared some of the findings here on this slide, and I don't think Tyreek's in here, but Tyreek, if you are, please feel free to jump in. I think that, how I would characterize a lot of this was that even as NAC, we still need to do, we still have a lot of relationship building needs, whether that's the creation of space that, allows us to fully articulate the things that we're experiencing, to sometimes express frustration with the situations that are going on, and then also to what's the word I'm looking for? To sort of compensate for some of the lost opportunities that we would normally have shifted to in-person meetings. That relationship building has been really important, and without it, if we're not paying attention to that, then it really compromises our ability to work together and coordinate. So that was helpful to be able to, it's very intuitive to say that, but it was helpful to be able to put that out in the open and recognize that that was something that the NAC members were feeling, at that time, and not just in theory. And finally, our final deliverable was a mashup of creating for the NAC, a charter document that could be handed forward, a living document that can continue to articulate what the purpose of the NAC is. And, along with that conversation, what is the conversation about what is the NAC must also include a conversation about what is it not. And that question about what is it not has led to a parallel conversation about something that we probably summarize as a quote national brigade, but really a bucket to talk about concepts of volunteers and other work elements that don't fit into the however we defined the role of the National Advisory Council volunteers. And so that has been a really rich discussion, and something that we would love to broaden and share with everyone here, because it affects the NAC and because it creates different and new leadership opportunities within the network. And finally, building on some work that I had started to do for Summit in 2020. We've been exploring different ways to engage with an issue that's especially important to me and to my kind of NAC objectives, which was exploring land acknowledgements, acknowledgement of indigenous peoples, and acknowledgement and incorporation of indigenous technologies and innovation, which there are several sessions about later today, and would love for you to join any of them and all of them. Moving on to what is next. Melanie, am I still on this slide, or am I handing off?
Either way, we can share this one, but the next slide is we're still under construction. We you know, as we kind of talked about, like, what are we going to present? One theme that came up again and again was like, well, it's not like we're this thing that's existed for a long time and is like extremely set in stone and like all the decisions have been made. Like, you know, neither the NAC nor the Brigade Network nor Code for America or Civic Tech or any of this is like done being built. Like, we're very much still iterating forward and figuring out what we are and what we do and what our role is. All of us, you know, the NAC and the network together, I think. So I would really love to invite everybody here to, like, please come to the table. Please give us your feedback when you have it. Please run for NAC. Please sign up for committees. I have loved seeing like newer Brigade members join committees and run with it and be giving lightning talks and everything else. It's really lovely. So please, you know, please come to the table and please help us kind of like, you know, decide the direction that we're going in together, because we are kind of, you know, here together building something. So, you know, it's not set in stone, and you know, everybody's invited to the table to determine the course of what we're doing here. And then we have a couple kind of more specific ways. The MOU, we need to remind everybody of, because this process is coming up, and I think because it happens sort of after Brigade Congress, the holiday season starts a little bit, it has in the past, maybe the deadline has been a little shorter, so maybe we want to just go ahead and mention, like, the MOU process is coming up. So if you're a brigade lead, like, you know, please know that that's coming. And yeah, if you have any questions, please do get in touch with us. You know, sooner now. If you are, you know, need any help going through that, or have any feedback you'd like to provide beforehand. And then another thing we'd like to mention. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to add to the MOU process. I think this has been underutilized by the network in the past. You know, we signed contracts. I think not contracts. We signed an MOU to establish some connection to Code for America. But I think it's both timing wise, great opportunity to reflect on needs and accomplishments. And to make adjustments in strategy, and lines up really well with when the NAC is going to be coming in. So any input that comes in through the MOU process is really valuable in aligning with Brigade interests. So one thing I'm hoping that we do either this year or in future years is figure out how to make the MOU a really like high leverage opportunity for brigades to communicate with National Code of America, and not just a rushed process. I can talk a little bit about this. We have a session later today about a question that's constantly hanging over both the network and Code for America itself. But what is our theory of change, right? As conditions change, as our resources change, what is it that we are learning, and how does that affect how we go about our work and where we focus our attention? So we, you know, since last year, this NAC has been having this conversation. The NAC, I'm positive, has been having this conversation in general for longer than it's even existed. And so part of what we're trying to contribute into this process this year is an explicit session dedicated to articulating several options for a theory of change, and an ongoing use of this tool POLIS to lift up from all corners of the brigade concepts of how people view their brigade and their work, and whether there's broad agreement about that from within the network. So session later today, if you're interested in this, please join that. And finally, run for NAC. Maybe I will hand off to Thad to share more about the NAC election process and calendar.
Thanks, Ben. Can you make the slide big, maybe?
Yes.
Thank you. Just so everyone knows, we are going to put the form from the NAC election up in mid-December. And the idea for that is people can start thinking now. We know this year there was a very fast turnaround because the idea was that we would all meet in person for the earlier summit, which was in March rather than May, when normally the NAC had met in April. So that affected the timeline, and in response to that, we've kind of put together this this other calendar for the way that we'll run this. And what you should know as if you are interested to be a candidate, there excuse me, are like 4 or 5 questions which are in the election framework document, which I'll link in the chat, that you ideally would be thinking about well in advance of the 15th of January deadline in 2021. That that would be the last time that you can put in your candidacy, and also you'll want to right at the very beginning of the year, you'll want to sensitize your brigades to the fact that the election's opening, and get out the vote for your candidacy or your brigade's candidacies. So that's going to be the plan for the year. If there's any questions, let me know in the chat. And once again, I'll put the framework in the chat. This is the election for the at-large members. And we have a form of voting, which is a little bit like ranked choice voting, but is more like I think it's called acceptance voting. And basically, you just mention all of the candidates that you think would be acceptable to serve as an at-large candidates, and then they go into the pot. Those votes go into the pot, and people are elected. So it'll be a little bit different from this year's election. Thanks, everyone.
I would also like to invite. Thank you so much, Thad. Sorry, didn't mean to just move on real quick. That was a great outline, and thank you so much also for your work in putting together this timeline. I would like to invite right now any current or former NAC members. I know we still have Noel and Chris on the line. If anyone has any kind of specific thoughts they'd like to share about why running for NAC is something you should do, or what your experience on the NAC, kind of what it was like. So I'd love to invite anyone now, current and former NAC members, to speak up about that one.
Thanks. I have something really brief. First and foremost, if you're thinking about running for the NAC, make sure that you are setting and dedicating time aside to be a full-fledged NAC member. The NAC over the last few years has really succeeded when there are dedicated people who have dedicated time to look at the overarching issues across the brigade program. That was a fallacy of my mistake during my first year. So if you're going to run, have a conversation with the rest of your leadership, so that way you have their support, so that way if you get elected, you can drop off and you can dedicate yourself to this national entity. The other thing is, if you have really passionate ideas, and I will say that many of us love to overcommit, so please, please, please make sure that you have that conversation, not only with yourself, your partners, and also your brigade members, your co-brigade leadership members. What Tim is bringing about in chat is that if you think that there are really great ideas that should be brought up on how the brigade brigade NAC system should run, we are still dealing with a certain lack of transparency. I don't mean that in a negative way at all, but there's a lack of transparency in regards to the relationship between CFA, the NAC, how certain decisions are being made, and the brigade program. If you want to make sure that those issues are addressed. Put that in as part of your platform. If you have ideas and concepts on how to better invigorate our community so that way it's more democratic and more representative of a number of different ideas, please put that into your platform. So I cannot speak and say this loud enough, but make sure that you're thinking about a comprehensive vision on how this system should run. That being said, if you really are just, you know, interested in representing yourself and representing your community, whatever that community is, make sure that you speak to that in your application. You don't necessarily have to have a large community standing behind you to represent or to be a member on the NAC. You just have to have really good ideas for the at-large membership, things that are going to resonate with our broader community. And I look forward to reading your candidacy, and I look forward to voting for any of you.
Wow, well said, Noel. +1 to all of that. To build on that a little, I think, in my view, to the Brigade network, CFA is a platform, not a governing body. Brigades opt into using that platform because there's value in being able to do a lot of things together. And we're not a bunch that has much appetite for being told what to do. So when you serve on the NAC, you're not voting on policies to subject brigades to, you're not overseeing how all the money we send up to national is getting spent. You know, you're there to connect this in the cloud's platform CFA is to our on-the-ground brigade network. And your avenue for impact is using the platforms of CFA and the NAC to get useful stuff in place for the brigade network. So I advocate for a view of NAC as a working group more than any sort of governing group. I think the best use of a NAC seat is to get hands-on, helping fill the gaps your experience on the ground has shown you in how our network connects together. So echoing a point Noel made, hand off your local responsibilities. Show up with ideas for filling the gaps you know best, that, you know, the things your unique experience gives you the best advantage to help with, and be ready to do two things. One is push for what you think the network needs, and two, be the driving muscle behind a couple things. Call it a pilot. People will let you do it, you know, give anything a try if you call it a pilot. I think Discourse is still technically a pilot. We'll have to check on the performance indicators, but, you know, and like Noel said, make it part of your platform. You know, come with some ideas that you want to implement and show up to use the position on NAC to push it forward.
And one example that I forgot to mention is this Undebate platform that we used last year. That'll probably be a pretty prominent part of the first stage. So watch out for the candid conversations. It makes answering these kinds of questions a little bit in video a little bit easier. So that'll happen in early or late January, I suppose. Thank you, everyone, all the former NAC members. And the way I think about the NAC is all about the figuring out the ways that we connect with with the CFA. Everything that's been said has been fantastic. So thank you for, I just echo the sentiments that you've put forward, and know that we are carrying them forward into this NAC and the next NAC.
Can I say one thing as a staff member? I just want to heap on some praise for NAC and for people who, for everyone who has kind of taken on this commitment in the past and will in the future, because as staff, it's incredibly helpful to have voices of brigade leaders and just a really diligent, hardworking group of people dedicated to doing all of the things that were presented here to make a better brigade network. So as someone who's been around the brigade network for a while, I think that the NAC is incredibly important and also a big responsibility, but also something that people can grow into. And so if you're seeing all of these things happening and you're like, wow, this is so outside of what I'm familiar with, it's something that is definitely possible to grow into. And I would encourage you to think about running for NAC. And I'm sure that the NAC members who are currently on NAC would be happy to chat one-on-one if you have questions or are concerned about it. But yeah, I think we're definitely interested in making sure that as many people have the ability and the opportunity to make their voice heard on the national level as possible. So anyway, that's just a little off the cuff staff spiel. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts, but hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Tom, for sharing that. And thank you everyone else for sharing. I hope we will continue all these chats. I do want to note that we have 4 minutes left, and maybe we're technically actually a minute over, but we have 4 minutes left until the next hour. So I'd like to go ahead and move us on to the last couple things. One is we're really hoping to hear feedback from you, and we do have this fun retro set up. This is something that a tool that we can use that you can type into, and that we can see each other's feedback. So the questions we've posed are: what challenges are facing your brigade right now? What has worked for your brigade in 2020? And then what can the NAC network team and the network at large accomplishes in 2021 that will strengthen your brigade? So if this, I'm going to drop a link in the chat unless someone else already has. So if this format works for you and makes sense for you, please go for it and use that. Also, I would invite you to give unstructured, feedback via whatever form works for you. If this is not, the one that's going to work, so please get in touch with any one of us or all of us, whatever way or form works for you. You can use, you can also reach us by Slack and email. And I would love with our last few minutes to remember a NAC member who passed away a year ago yesterday, I believe. Janet pointed out to us, Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis onboarded with the class of 2019, the NAC of 2019. He was the captain of Code for Savannah. And, he embodied so much of what we, I think, are and hope to be as a network. And I'd love to, I guess, just dedicate a moment to thinking about Carl and thinking about his leadership and his vision for what we could do together. Would any other NAC members or brigade volunteers like to, I guess, speak up or share anything to remember Carl?
I'll quickly share. Carl loved Taylor Swift, and I'm no Taylor Swift expert, but I spent some time last night with my wife Tori trying to find appropriate Taylor Swift lyrics that Carl might appreciate. She's a great songwriter. There's a lot to work with, but I found one that I liked. There were many that I liked, but this one: and you come away with a great little story of a mess of a dreamer with a nerve to adore you. And I want to say one thing about leadership in the network, which is that it is needed. It's not easy. It's extremely rewarding, but we have to support each other, and you're never alone. And being in a position of leadership in any context can be isolating and difficult and leave you vulnerable, but not if we're together.
I want to share a little picture I pulled up on my screen. I don't know if anyone can see it. This is from my Instagram account. One of the first things I remember about Carl, he ahead of one of the, I think, summits, he shipped to Philly this little robot, Rob the robot. And we had to promise somehow between all our volunteer leaders to keep him in shape for several months and bring him and deliver him to summit. This was right after I think Philly killed a robot that was traveling around. It's just the kind of thing Carl did. Gave us a chance to redeem ourselves.
Okay, I think Melanie, we're at time. Is there anything else that we needed to cover before we close this?
No, I think that was a whirlwind session. Please do, I know we didn't leave any time for questions. Please do reach out to any one of us if you have any kind of questions or thoughts or anything under the sun that you'd like to share with any NAC member. And thank you all so much for being here, and please run.
Please run. And yes, please reach out. Echoing Melanie, we all care about this work a lot and would love to talk to you. I think both us and any former NAC member.
All right. See you in the next session and in the networking rooms. Bye.